Hey, how are you all doing? I'm not even going to try to explain why I haven't done a video for so long. Life just got in the way, but I'm going to endeavor, do my best to do more videos more regularly over time. And to get back into things, I thought I would do an overview of my September history haul. I bought a bunch of books on Book Outlet online, used book store, and I got a big batch. So excited to share them with you today, and I'm going to start with one that I've just read. Finished this one up a couple days ago. This is called Midway by Mark E. Steele or Style. This is about the Battle of Midway, which if you're a history buff or a World War II buff, you'll definitely know. This one's really good, actually. I enjoyed it. I think Mark did a great job of covering things in a very fair way that were critical and positive about both the Americans and the Japanese, where they deserved sort of praise or criticism in their strategy overall, their tactics overall, and how the battle played out. Also, just individual initiative and luck and how all that stuff plays in, even when you are in the middle of a master planned set piece naval battle like Midway was. Has a personal connection for me, actually, which you might find interesting. My great uncle was a squadron leader. He was leader of Torpedo 8, torpedo bomber squadron from the USS Hornet during Midway. He was actually, unfortunately, shot down at the Battle of Midway and did not survive. So I always try to read stuff on Midway when I can, just with the family connection. I mean, sometimes many of us do have personal connections to various events in history, and yeah, that's something about mine that my history that attracts me to sort of read about this kind of stuff. It's an interesting way to connect with people in your past, so to speak. So that's Midway. I highly recommend that book if you're looking for a good book on World War II. That's a fantastic read. The next book that I'm going to talk about, I'm almost done this book. This is called Oathbreakers, and this is about the war, the civil war between the heirs to the throne of Charlemagne, the Holy Roman Empire. And this is something that I know nothing about. Like, I know Charlemagne, obviously, in the Holy Roman Empire, and I know that the whole thing kind of collapsed in part because of the Frankish tradition of putting sons in charge of different parts of the empire. But this is really about how it all falls apart following Charlemagne's death, and the sort of maneuverings and the intrigue with family members and nobles, and the belief that the Franks were the God's chosen people, and how that kind of all shattered in the crisis that enveloped the realm after Charlemagne's death. If that sounds cool, I think it sounded cool. I don't know if this book is that great. To me, it hasn't really brought the time to life. And when I read an older sort of a book about these kind of times, I'm really hoping that it just springs to life. I'm not an academic, like I'm not a professional historian. So when I read, I really want the history. I want it to spring from the pages, and this one's not doing it for me. So not a huge recommendation on that, but I'm almost done, and I'm happy that I've read it because I have learned a ton. The next book that I got was, the next book I plan to read is Russia, Revolution and Civil War, 1917 to 1921, by Antony Beevor, Sir Antony. I'm a big fan of Sir Antony's writing, Stalingrad, Fall of Berlin. It's got a lot of good books that are very, very readable, very relatable, very easy for the sort of weekend reading warrior like myself, not a professional historian, never going to be a professional historian, but just a fan of learning about the past. So I'm super excited to read this. I have no idea what I said in my other videos at this point, but I actually did a history degree, and I did a double major in history and Russian through the School of Modern Languages. And I studied briefly at the Moscow State Linguistic University way back when I was a kid. So I've always read Russian history, literature, culture, all that stuff. And so this is really something that's high up on my list, and I was excited to get it used because I got it really cheap at Book Outlet. So looking forward to this read. Probably I'd recommend this even having not read a thing because he's such a good writer. So looking forward to this one. The next book that I got was Twilight Cities, Lost Capitals of the Mediterranean by Catherine Pangonis. Looking forward to this one. Unlike a lot of people, or I don't know if there's other people like me, but I actually like reading the history of cities. I've read a number of cities history, like where it's like sort of beginning to end, like Rome is obvious. People study the actual history of Rome, not just the empire, but like another classic example of a city in history is like Edinburgh. If you've ever read the history of Edinburgh, I have a history of St. Petersburg on my shelf. So I like to read the history of cities. And I'm really looking forward to this one because the classical world has so much in terms of lost civilizations, and cities really played a big role back then. So outsized compared to kingdoms or even the burgeoning empire. So really looking forward to that book, and I'll let you know if that's good because I'm hoping that that's another book that kind of jumps to life in terms of a living history, right? I mean, it's important for all of us, I think, that are just doing this for fun. Next book that I bought, I don't know how I thought I was going to get all this done in September, actually, now that I'm going through these books, but probably going to take me into October, I think. The next book that I bought, though, is Tom Holland, Millennium. This is basically about Western civilization at the time of the millennium, whether we call it the Dark Ages or the early medieval period. Definitely not classical. I have a pretty big gap. I'm have to admit. I've read a lot on ancient history and then a lot on modern, sort of post 18th century, so 1700s and up. Know a lot. I've read a lot about the bookends of history from the Western canon perspective, and I don't know that much about medieval history. So I'm looking forward to tying into this one. I think it's going to be interesting. Millenniums are always something special too, right? So hopefully this is good. I've never read Tom Holland before. I know that he's very popular as far as the popular fiction genre goes. And so super excited to read one of his works. Almost said novel there. One of his historical works. So excited about reading Millennium. The last book that I got, and the last book that I'm going to talk about in this video, it's a book on George Washington, The Political Rise of America's Founding Father. So this is a biography. I actually don't know that much about American Revolutionary history either, or the founding of the Republic. I'm looking forward to this one just because it is the political rise. I kind of like the intellectual history of events more than often the sort of on the ground history. So with George Washington being one of the fundamental figures of the American Revolution, along with others like Benjamin Franklin, I'm pretty excited about this one. I think this is going to be a good read. I have no idea whether it had good reviews or not. I don't know anything about the book. It's just buying online. You're kind of gambling a little bit, and I didn't do much research on the reviews. So if you've read it, if you know anything about it, would be happy to hear in advance what you thought. Get a dialogue going. I'm certainly going to give a little bit more in-depth discussion about some of these books as I read them, if I think they're worth talking about more publicly on my channel. So that's what I've got in store for the next 6 weeks or so. Probably going to take me longer. I'd probably be looking at wrapping that up in November and buying more books then. In the meantime, I'll hopefully be able to do a few videos on some of these books and some others. So that's the work I got cut out for me. It's not really work, it's reading, right? It's fun. Anyway, yeah, thanks for checking in. And if you haven't clicked off this and gone to another video at this point, would be happy if you subscribed, happy for a like, and I'd be more happy just to hear how you are. Like, throw something in the comments about where you're at and how things have been. Whether life's treating you well. It's a crazy world, so it's good just to communicate and just say hi and just say, yeah, things are good. Anyway, we'll see you on the next one. I promise it's not going to be as long as this last gap. Take care. We'll see you.